There's one pretty big pet peeve that I have when it comes to college football, especially during the transfer portal. Let me explain. Now, I know that, maybe my pet peeve is probably a little out there to some and probably won't get a lot of people to agree with me on this pet peeve. However, let me tell you it anyway. When the transfer portal was enacted, when the transfer portal became a thing, and it became a not only yearly thing, but it's pretty much a semester thing, or fall, winter, spring, whatever. And if you cover a team and then you say breaking, so-and-so has entered the transfer portal, there's always comments from that fan base or people in that fan base who says, who in the hell was that kid? Either you don't follow the team as closely and you're just a fan, like, hey, I love my team, or you're just like, you're just being dumb. It's a pet peeve of mine. Like, how can you follow a team? How can you be a fan of a team and not know the players on your team? Now, I can understand if you're a passerby. Yeah, I'm just going to watch. I'm still a fan. All right, I'll give you a pass. But it's always the same people making the comments. Who was that kid? Where is he from? Who's his mama and daddy? I know where he's from. Yeah. Drives me absolutely freaking insane. Positively 100% freaking insane. Nevertheless, we are live. Good to be back with you. We got a lot to discuss around your SEC episode 11. Gonna go on a dual Ruffino's rants. Now, I'm not gonna get into the weeds of how this debate started, but yesterday saw a lot about who wide receiver U is. Let's do that SEC edition. Who is the best school since 2012 that has produced the best wide receivers? And it's not remotely close. The debate started. I am just going to give you the team that should be regarded as, by far, unequivocally, the best team that produces wide receivers. And I don't talk about LSU on this show because, or at least on this part of our show around your SEC, pretty much I avoid it because we talk about them so much everywhere else. Today, however, we are going to do that as we talk about that. Yesterday, another Ruffino's rants will go on. Yesterday, Billy Napier was on with Josh Pate. He said he was going to continue to call the plays. Why I think that it is a bad move. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago on Ruffino Joe Show, why I thought it would continue to be a bad move for Billy Napier to continue to call plays when you have a guy like Russ Callaway that is on your staff. We'll get into that. I got to go back to what we discussed on Monday about the Georgia Bulldogs. I think that they are undeniably the best team in the country right now. Now, is the transfer portal going to affect that? Is the transfer portal, are they going to have big losses? I don't actually think that they will, but in case that they do, we could always come back and, how do I want to say this? Reevaluate, but I don't think that they are, and I think they are the best. We're going to talk a little bit about the Georgia Bulldogs here this morning as well. My top spring quarterback takeaways, the top three for me so far. Now, we're going to have to revisit this next week and the week after that, and once spring is completely over for everybody, we'll reevaluate. But of the teams that have completed spring, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, Jalen Milroe. I think all three of those teams, Georgia, Bama, LSU, feel or should feel somewhat confident about what they have going on at the quarterback position. We'll talk about that as well. And at the end of the show, hashtag Ask Blake, thoughts, questions, concerns. We will bring them inside of the Rudy Crew chat. Chris Lomax says, nothing like listening to my guy while I'm at Let's Go Tigers. while you're at where? But thank you, Chris, for being in here. Lucy B says, hey, listening at work from the 31401. Where is that? Where is that from, Lucy? Where is that from? We appreciate all of y'all being in here. He says work. All right. Good to have you in here, Chris. Glad to have all of you in here. I got to admit, man, I started this fast yesterday, starting from yesterday to today. And right before I came on the show, I got stupid hungry. So if I seem agitated, it's probably the hunger part, but nevertheless, I continue to think about it. I can't because I started from about 4 p.m. yesterday, and your boy might be struggling a little bit here. Your boy might be struggling. Lucy B says from Savannah, Georgia. Great place is Savannah, Georgia. John Bro says listening from the 713, the Houston area. Go Tigers. Good to have you all on in here. Good to have you all on there. Lance says, there goes that cup again. Brownie points, big dog. Yeah, got to get the brownie points with the wife, man. Even though this is around your SEC, if my wife buys me something, I'm going to unequivocally continue to use it so I get those brownie points. Don't tell her I said that. All right, let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Should all those social media groups, should all of those social media pages, you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you are listening to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline, our good friends over at Home Field Apparel, and our good friends over at J&J Exterminating. During the break, if you're just coming in, hit the share. Do us a favor. Hit that like and share. We greatly appreciate it every time you do it. We got a lot to talk about. SEC football. We do that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah. We're back.
All right. Let's get this thing rolling, y'all. So, yesterday, there was a debate that broke out on Twitter in reference to who was wide receiver you. Now, we are going to do this as an SEC edition because LSU fans, I know you're going to get upset. Alabama fans, to some extent, I think you will get upset. The only other team that I will hear an argument on, like the only team that I will listen to when it comes to wide receiver U, besides an LSU, would be an Ohio State. That's neither here nor there. But yesterday, from out of College Station, not completely, but the wide receiver U debate and argument came to light. And the first thing that I did when I saw it, heard it, and saw the debate was, you know what? I wonder how many guys that had been drafted at wide receiver from Texas A&M. And I know that this debate is going to probably spark some Texas A&M fans to get mad. I am just looking at guys that have been drafted since you entered the SEC in 2012, which I think is a good moniker to start off with. Gives a long, long runway for us to look at when you entered the SEC. Just how many guys have you had that have been next level? Listen, when it comes to who is the best team that produces wide receivers, now you're going to probably already say I'm biased in saying this, but it is LSU. Now, let me start right here and saying I don't come on around your SEC when we do this show and segment and talk about LSU hardly ever because I talk about them so much everywhere else. But today we're going to talk about them because since 2012 and since Texas A&M has come into the league and since the debate kind of somewhat started out of College Station, I just wanted to point this out. LSU has had 11 players since 2012 when A&M came in that has been drafted into the NFL. Guys like Ruben Randall, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Malachi Dupre, James Wright, DJ Chark, Russell Gage, Justin Jefferson. Could just stop there. Jamar Chase, Ricey McMath, Kayshon Boutte, and oh, by the way, they're going to have 2 first-round picks this year with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Texas A&M, as an example, though, over that same exact span, has only had 5 guys since 2012 have been drafted from Texas A&M at wide receiver. Now, they have a really good one in Mike Evans. They got drafted by Tampa in the first round. But he is the only first-round wide receiver that they've had, the Johnny Manziel era, since they've been in the league. See, the only 2 teams in this conference, the only 2 that have the debate is LSU and Alabama. Because LSU has had 11 guys that have been drafted into the draft. Alabama has 10. Now, even though Alabama has a lot of quantity of guys that have been drafted, they don't have the quality. Nobody in their right mind can look at LSU since 2012 and say to themselves that LSU has not been the best school in this conference in producing wide receivers. I can look at 2. Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. Odell Beckham, what he has done in the NFL. Jamar Chase, what he has done. I could stop right there and say, hey, listen, nobody is on the same type of level that those guys are. The only guy that you could say would be Amari Cooper for Alabama and maybe Devonta Smith. But Devonta Smith is actually from Louisiana, so how many brownie points do you give Alabama? I'll give it to you. They're not Justin Jefferson. They're not Jamar Chase. Oh, by the way, they're producing another 2 first-round picks. I look at this and say to myself, you're going to have 4 first-round wide receivers get drafted since 2012 if you're LSU. So when you look at a kid like DeCorian Moore, when you look at a kid that is around the nation or a kid that's from Louisiana and his dream is to grow up and want to be a wide receiver from LSU, it's because of what they've done over a decade plus. By the way, even before 2012 when A&M came to the league, since they want to have the debate, I guess, there's no real team in the South There's only arguably one team that you could say in college football that has the not only quantity, but quality of guys that have come from that position. I thought it was an interesting debate. But if you're an LSU fan or an Alabama fan, look at some of these names like DJ Chark, Odell, Jarvis Landry, Russell Gage, a 6th-round guy still in the league producing at a high level, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I mean, really and truthfully, A&M ain't got no damn body. I mean, they got Mike Evans and Ryan Swoop, the great white hope. Bama has some good ones, man. I mean, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. I mean, some of the first-round guys that they've had, like Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Oh, by the way, I forgot Terrace Marshall in here. So 12. That's my bad. So let me back up. 12 dudes from LSU have been drafted. I just got that in my ear. Yeah, we missed Terrace Marshall. So 12 to 10. Let me finish this by saying, I know A&M fans don't really like me. It's okay. But this whole thing about wide receiver I mean, you can't have 5 guys that have been drafted or talk about it or where you're trying to go. You would have to have a decades plus worth of just undeniable great athletes and great draft picks at A&M. A&M is the guy at the bar who thinks that they're really cool and thinks that they're a dude, but the only reason why they have all the shiny stuff and why people hang out with them is because their daddy's got money. I would love for anybody to tell me one thing that Texas A&M does that is on the pinnacle of any of these other schools that they try to compare themselves to. You know what Texas A&M does is they don't want to be lumped in with the Kentuckys. They don't want to be lumped in with maybe the Floridas, the Tennessees, the Arkansas. Maybe they're not as bad as Arkansas. They haven't been as bad as Arkansas. But they're trying to grasp and reach for being on the top of this conference. And when it comes to college football, to the Georgias, the LSUs, the Alabamas, and really and truthfully, I know I just mentioned Florida, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Even the Floridas since 2012. They're not in they want to be in that tier when it comes to everybody else and everything else. They can't be. They won't be. It is what it is. But I thought it was funny when I saw them try to compare themselves, which they quite honestly always do. Now, I'm not trying to get in a fight. I'm not trying to get in some kind of long-form debate. I don't need to get in a long-form debate with anybody that covers Texas A&M about this. I mean, you've done a really good job along the defensive line, right? Like, I mean, you've done good, but so has everybody else. I think Texas A&M is the team that you can't put them, in the tier with the Kentuckys because they have more wins than all of those teams, but they try to, grasp up. They try to play up to who they think that they are when they're really not. They're really not. They've had one good year, really, in the SEC. Oh, we won 9 wins during COVID. Okay, sounds great. Sound good. Great for you, man. Great for you. Great that you actually got to 9 wins. But I just never understand, like, the cockiness. Truth be told, I think you're more of a baseball school and you should dive more into that. You want to be a football school, you're not going to be right now. You got a long way to go. Even if you went undefeated 15-0, when it comes to a decade's worth of teams that have done shit that's worth a damn, you're not in that pedestal. You won't be in that pedestal. So 12, believe it or not, I left one out. 12 guys have been drafted from LSU since 2012, 10 from Alabama, 5 from Texas A&M. Dude, 5 dudes. How big of a joke does that got to be? It's got to be a big one. All right, let's get into the here and now and stop debating something that probably arguably shouldn't have been debated. So yesterday, our good friend Josh Pate from Late Kick and his podcast from 247 Sports met with Billy Napier. And I listened to the full interview last night. I thought it was fantastic. And to be honest with you guys, I do think that what Josh Pate is doing with the going around talking to different coaches, I got to be honest, from a college football fan's perspective, I do think it's the best content when it comes to talking to coaches. I thought the Mack Brown interview was the most electric thing that you could listen to. If you're a college football fan, he's done an amazing job. That's neither here nor there. Saying that, I just wanted to give the man some props. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic what he's doing. But he met with Billy Napier yesterday, and there was one thing that Josh asked that we talked about last week on the Ruffino and Joe show that I want to bring back here. Was Billy Napier pretty much asked by Josh about play calling and will you continue to call plays? Now, he gave a long-formed answer in reference to promoting Russ Callaway, which some of you LSU fans may remember Russ Callaway because Orgeron used to go out into every press conference and say, Russ Callaway this, Russ Callaway that. Well, he never promoted him when he had the chance to do that. But Russ Callaway has been promoted as a co-offensive coordinator for the Florida Gators, which honestly, I do believe and know Russ and think that he should be the outright play caller. It goes to what we talked about on Monday, that Florida is not going to change and will not change from a play calling aspect because this is Billy's job. This is what Billy wants to do. He wants to call plays. I think it's such a horrible idea for him to be the play caller. Let me explain. I actually don't completely believe that Billy is a bad play caller all around. I do think Billy has done some great things at times when it comes to play calling. I just don't know if he always has the athletes or the dudes that would take him to that next step. Now, I do think that there were times when he had a quarterback like Anthony Richardson. If he could have gotten him to come back, maybe they would have been a lot better this past season. Maybe they would have gotten back to a bowl, or they would have gotten to a bowl game. The kid could have developed better. Probably, arguably, you can make the argument would have been a top 3 quarterback in this year's draft as well. But I think that Billy has so many other things that he has to take care of all around the team that I think he does have to give up play calling. Now, I don't think that they're going to have a winning season. I think that they have the toughest schedule in the country, maybe the toughest schedule in college football's history if you look at it from the totality of it. I do look at Billy and say that you have proven to me that you just want to be a play caller and be on the offensive side. You hire a guy in Ron Roberts, which to some of you Louisiana people on the North Shore will remember Ron Roberts because of him being the head coach at Southeastern, going to ULL, and all these different kinds of things. Ron Roberts has had a long tree of guys that have coached in the South, Pete Golding being one, the DC at Ole Miss, Cody Kennedy being the offensive line coach at Mississippi State. And there are so many others. But he made them like pretty much the head coach of defense. It's not Ron Roberts' job to be a head coach of defense. It's Billy Napier's job. He's getting paid millions upon millions upon millions, not more than Mario Cristobal. Did y'all see that? Mario Cristobal made $22 million in year one on some credibility or credible stuff or however they did it. I don't know. Crazy. We're worried about a linebacker getting $75,000 or a wide receiver getting $100,000 in NIL money, but Mario Cristobal can make $22 million. That's neither here nor less. But the bottom line is, if Florida and Billy Napier want to have success, he needs to take a step back and give somebody else play calling duties so that he can fix the entire team. Josh asked him this question. He's still having issues on special teams. Then Billy responded and said, well, look, listen, if you just take some of the bad things out, some of the things that we did, we actually were pretty good on special teams. No, that's not the point that Josh is making. And that wasn't the point that he was making. The point that he was making was you in a spring game had 10 guys on the field. You had in the first game versus Utah a play where 2 guys had the same number on. If Florida wants to get back to where they are with even Billy Napier, I think it's a bad thing that he's going to be the play caller. Even though I don't like if Billy Napier got fired and the next year was an OC somewhere, I don't really believe that Billy's a bad play caller. I think that he would have to fit with a program that is built in such where they have a strong offensive line play because of the system and the things that he wants to do, which they do not have at Florida right now, in my opinion. But the incompetency to me, like the sheer incompetency that Billy shows, guys, I got to tell Florida fans, I think that they're being more patient than any other fan base. Because if this were happening at LSU and you had an issue where your head coach is trying to do things, we saw this with Orgeron or Jimbo Fisher or anywhere else, pitchforks would be flying at Billy Napier, which somewhat they kind of already are, but you're not seeing it every single day from that fan base. I feel look, I'm not a Florida fan clearly, but if I'm looking at this from just an overall 25,000 foot view oversight, I do think that Florida could be a little bit better than maybe some people are giving them credit for, but I don't think that they can beat Miami. I don't think that they can beat LSU. I don't think that they, if I'm not mistaken, have Ole Miss. I don't think that they can beat Tennessee. I don't think that they can beat Florida State. I don't think that they can beat, I'd have to pull up their schedule, but they got Florida State there at the end. But that last 5-game stretch is brutal. I think at best, maybe they're 5-7, maybe 6-6. And Billy said yesterday, hey, I feel like we finally got our culture and everything identified. And okay. If you're not, man, if he's not careful, they're gonna show him the door. They had no choice but to show him the door. It's just like, I feel like when Clemson fans are telling Dabo to get out of the play calling, stop meddling with the offense. Les Miles, stop meddling with the offense. Billy falls in that role. Completely falls in that role. If you're having issues defensively, if you're having issues offensively, everything that happens inside that program falls on the head coach, whether it be the players that they recruited, and if some of those players were busts, even if some of those players who are undervalued in recruiting and they take a massive step and a massive leap and go to the next level and are great, they get the credit for that. I do feel like Billy, for what it's worth, gave his biggest project to somebody else because he didn't want to deal with it. That's the feeling that I got. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Florida fans will try to come in here and correct me, but the way that I look at it, I went back and watched the spring game again this morning. I don't see a faction where they can beat some of the teams that and Blake, it's a spring game. Guys, I understand it. I do think that there are some things that you can look at when you're watching practice or spring. Our good buddy Gator Dave saying, hey, we need to fill our team with these specific areas in the transfer portal. And I just wanted to comment on Dave's tweet, but I didn't, saying, okay, so you need, of all the positions that you have on a football field, you need half of them. That's not a recipe for success. When you are saying, hey, we got to go to the portal for these 7-8 positions to get better, it's not a good place to be in. Look, man, I don't want to overreact to a spring game, and I'm not going to, and I'm not overreacting. But I will say that there's one final thing that continues to happen around Billy Napier more than anywhere else. When players are entering the transfer portal from Florida, they are taking to social media and are pretty much dogging out everything that's going on defensively. You got Prince Yelling, that's at Ole Miss, talked ungodly amount of crazy stuff about them and what they're doing defensively. And then the Nunnery kid, the linebacker yesterday, said the same thing. Like, hey, man, y'all are blaming me for all the stuff that the defensive coordinator is telling me to do. I do think that defensive side of the football at Florida might be extremely toxic. Now, I know that Florida fans are going to come in here and berate me and talk crap. I get that. And if you're watching this clip, I would understand too. You don't want your team to be bad. But how many times are you going to look at a situation like Prince Yelling and the Nunnery kid and say, this is becoming a massive issue? And Napier doesn't care because he wants to call plays and be on the offensive side of the football. Meanwhile, you're making a guy in Ron Roberts the head coach of defense. And by the way, because I went to Southeastern Louisiana. When Ron was coming in, I was transitioning out. I don't think Ron's a bad coach at all. I think that the proof is in the pudding on how good he can be. But he's man, you know what I was going to say something, but I'm going to stop. You know what? He's divvying out responsibilities that should be his own. If a player, multiple players on defense are coming to you saying, Coach, you're telling me to do this, but I'm telling you, we are in defensive meetings and this defensive and Austin Armstrong is telling me to do this. What do you want me to do? Billy's got to go in there and fix it himself. He needs to go to the coaches and find out what's going on. This is way too many kids that are speaking out on this. I think it's toxic. I really do. I hate that for Florida fans. Like I said, I'm not a Florida fan. But if I'm looking at it from a 25,000 foot view, I feel bad for that fan base. Because it's like this. Think about, and some of you teams that are on the top, some of you fans your teams are at the top, like the top three, like Alabama, Georgia, LSU. Imagine having been or you're in Florida situation over and over and over and over and over again. You know, listen, I think that they fired Dan way too soon because, what about recruiting? And, I get that. But now look where you're at. You panicked. The administration panicked. And I don't know if you don't need to look at your AD and say to yourself, hey, man, it might be time for you to go. Because football, regardless of what they're doing, everything else, basketball, baseball, if you're going to be that bad in football, it might be time to move on from Scott Strickland. You got to get that head coaching position right. Florida is a proud fan base. And even though this team behind me would tell you that it's their biggest rival, one of their biggest rivals, I should say, the Florida Gators. So many great games that have gone on with them. I respect Florida more than anything. But, God, you got to feel bad for a fan base who can be and has shown that they can be one of those top tier elite programs that constantly just doesn't live up to the billing. I think that they have fans that are yearning for a championship. And I will tell you, there is one team in the country that scares me more than anybody if they get things right, and that is Florida. If you're looking at a hot seat of head coaches, the only place that scares me, or the place that scares me the most, that if they got it right, is Florida. And it's not even remotely close. Like Billy Napier, not only is he on the hot seat, his seat's got to be scorching. And I know that he said that I don't really listen to all that. I call BS. I don't believe you. I think it really sucks for them. Really, really sucks. All right. Chris Lomax says, I need that mug. I don't know where Megan got that from. But see, she does a lot of shopping like at Costco and what's that other one? The Walmart brand of Costco? Sam's. Yeah, man. Trying to get my brownie points up. Trying to get the brownie points up. Brandon Reese says, I think anything less than 8-4 will probably cost Napier's job. I don't know if 8-4. I don't think he's got to go 8-4. I think 8-4 would be the pinnacle, creme de la creme ceiling for them next year. And let me tell you this. If the Florida Gators go 8-4 with the schedule that they have, there's going to be teams next year that get in the playoff that wouldn't be better than Florida. Let me explain. If Florida, let's just say, like because they would have, if they lost to Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Miami, I think all of those teams would be in playoff contention their damn self. I don't think that there's a team in the Big 12 that would be better than them. I don't know, quite honestly, other than Utah, that is a better team than them in the Big 12. Maybe Kansas State, maybe Kansas, maybe. I don't know. But I don't think that they can go 8-4. I think that I think that their outright ceiling is 7-5. But there's nowhere. Let me you know what? Let me pull this schedule up. Let me pull this schedule up right quick. Let's look at this. I know we've done this before, but I want to look at their schedule again. Hold on. All right. Let's see here. They got Miami at home. Guys, I got to be real with you. I don't think that they can beat Miami. I legitimately don't. Samford, that would be a win. A&M at home. I think they could beat A&M at home. I 100% do. I think they can beat Mississippi State on the road. I think that they could. Well, UCF, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I say that they go 4-1 in their first 5 games. I think that they lose to Tennessee. I think that they could lose to Kentucky. I think that they could lose to Georgia. I think they can lose to Texas. They can lose to LSU, Ole Miss, at Florida State. Look, man, that has got to be the toughest slate. UCF at Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, at Texas. So technically, that's 2 back-to-back road games. Even though the Georgia game's in Jacksonville, the largest cocktail party, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, at Florida State. Because they might not win 4 games. The last game that they might win might be on October the 5th. They might go pretty much the entire month of October and all of November not winning a football game. Damn. H-Town Creole says that A&M beat Miami last year. That is true. They sure did. By the way, who is Miami's quarterback? Y'all put it in the chat. I know. We talked about him at length this week already. Who is their quarterback? And I will tell you, from a player versus player aspect, I don't think that Florida ain't got, nor Texas A&M does any of them have the dudes that Miami does right now. By the way, Miami's not done. I think that they're going to hit the portal pretty aggressively again in this spring portal. They already are trying to add, Damian Martinez. I think that he visits today to them, the Oregon State running back. Good luck. Good luck. Look, I understand and I agree with pretty much everybody about Mario Cristobal and his in-game coaching ability. Let me ask y'all one question. What about Billy Napier's in-game coaching ability? Guys, he had 2 players with the same number go out on special teams, and in a spring game where he could have stopped everything, he had 10 people on a field goal block. 10 people. Which in the olden days, in the early 2000s, if you didn't have 11 people on the field on field goal block, you got a penalty defensively. See, some of you won't remember that. All right. By the way, A&M got slaughtered in the portal. Nobody in their right mind could say that they know exactly what A&M will be next year. Nobody. It's too many moving parts. They could be 7-5. They could be 8-4. They can win 9 games. But I see OG Gary, Cam Ward, Eric Cam Ward. Y'all keep playing with Miami. I'm gonna give y'all a hot take. I got Miami making the playoff. Now we'll talk about that probably May on Ruffino and Joe show. We'll start getting into some teams that I think they're gonna make the playoff. And let me tell you, of the 12, I think Miami is going to be one of them. I think Miami will be one of them. I think that they're that talented. If they don't, it's going, they got to start looking at Mario Cristobal and asking if he's the dude. All right. Let's do this. I need to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, and then we'll get to some questions and get out of here. Let me get to a very quick break. Stay with us. We're going to return. I think that there's something that about the Georgia Bulldogs that you need to hear, and you need to listen to me now. We'll talk about that next. Stay with us.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline.ag.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
J&J has protected Louisiana homes and businesses for over 60 years.
Call him today, make the pests go away. J&J Exterminating. Yeah. Spence, we're about to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs here for just a quick second. Saints fans, I've been saying this for about a month. I will continue to say it. I know that the Saints need tackles. I agree that they need offensive tackles. Hear me and hear me now. If Brock Bowers is there at 14, take him. Take him. Don't overthink it. Don't go after what you need. Take Brock Bowers. Don't second guess yourself. That's all I got to say about that. All right. Only NFL draft talk that I will talk about today. Guys, we talked about the Georgia Bulldogs on Monday, and we broke down their spring game, the things I liked. Actually said that I did not see a lot of weaknesses. Maybe somebody can say the secondary. I don't necessarily believe that. Guys, I broke them down again yesterday and going into this morning. I think that they are undeniable. What do I mean by that? I don't think that there's 12, not even just 12 teams because of a 12-team playoff. Guys, I don't think that there's 4 teams in the country better than them. I don't know if there's any team really better in the country than them. Blake, I know it's the preseason. Blake, what are you talking about? They might not be. You never know. You could be right. I don't know. Not fully anyway. There's just not a team that is built like them anywhere. I watched so many teams during the spring. And let me tell you, any scout of any sport will tell you this. It doesn't matter when or what time of the year it is. When you're watching athletes perform, you always know who has the most dudes, right? Like you always know which team, like Georgia, they got the most dudes. They do. I'm going to give you a minimal hot take. Here's a minimal hot take for you. Not only do I think that Georgia is the best team in the country, I really do believe that they could have a run this upcoming season that would look a lot like that we've seen with teams in the past, even their own, that were national champions. In the conversation of, could they be one of the better teams of all time? I think that they're building to that. I really do. I think from a top to bottom, team-wise, I don't know prospect versus prospect if they're not better than that 2022 team that won a national title. I think that they have the potential to be better than that team. Now, that team had a lot of dudes. Don't get me twisted. I think the biggest position group that a lot of people questioned that I think might be even better than that 22 team, guys, this offensive line might be serious at Georgia. I watched the game over again. What I really did is watch both units, both first, second team of the offensive line. They had some mishaps. They gave up a couple of pressures here and there, didn't get really necessarily sacks against really good NFL defensive linemen in the next couple of years. They road rated. There was a play, and on the TV copy, you can see Kirby getting very red, like the color of his visor. This offensive line, though, is going to separate them more than people understand. Now, last year, the biggest question was, hey, man, I don't know if we're going to be good enough here. Guys, I gotta tell you, I don't know if they hadn't gotten better. Now, it's tough to replace a guy like Cedric Van Pran. I'm with you. It's tough to replace a guy like Mims. But it's like what Kirby saw all those years under Saban. Guys, they're not rebuilding. They just reloaded. It was only a matter of time, the way that Kirby recruited that position before they started really making waves. Now, they did that on the defensive line at times. They didn't do it a lot on the O-line. I think that he's done it.
I think he's got both lines of scrimmages. If you're looking at O-line, D-line, who is the best in the country at both lines of scrimmage, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. It's not close. That's where they're going to win and dominate teams because they can really do whatever they want on both lines of scrimmage at times. Still got some things they got to figure out, maybe some secondary, maybe some rotational pieces, some depth on both of those position groups. But as I sit here and breathe today, I don't know. I think they're undeniable. There's no world unless they had a crap load of injuries like they did a year ago, where they're not only in the SEC championship game, where they're not in the national title game. Got a big game against Texas early in the year. Let's see how they do there. I think they play Clemson week 1. Let's see how they do there, even though I think they're going to really beat down on Clemson. It's impressive, man. It's very impressive because you would have said 2 weeks ago, hey, man, this offensive line, they got to get in the weight room more. They got to get stronger, bigger, faster, stronger. Well, somebody forgot to tell them because they put their head down and went to work. So, yeah. Good for Kirby, man. I look at Ohio State, and I know that there's a lot of people talking about Ohio State. Ohio State's offensive line is not good. They're not good. At all. They might have the best quarterback in the SEC. Not only do they have the 3 things that you got to have to win national titles. Really good quarterback play. And it could be moderate if you have the next 2 things. But, guys, if you have really dominating offense and defensive lines, you can win a national title. I think we just saw that with Michigan. I think we saw it with Georgia the 2 years before that. I think we saw it with LSU, Alabama. I think we saw it with Clemson in 2018. In 2018, people don't give credit to Clemson for the play that they got along that offensive line. Because you had a freshman quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who I thought made some good decisions but held the ball too long at times. The teams that win that area win national titles. I think you do have some position or some teams that have like really good O-lines or some really decent D-lines. Like I think that Ole Miss has a really good defensive line. Now, they keep saying that their O-line is going to be so much better. We'll see. We haven't seen them really yet. We haven't seen Ole Miss yet. I think Lane did that on purpose. But I think LSU's got a good O-line. But where Ole Miss has got a good D-line, I don't know about their offensive line. Where LSU's got a good offensive line, I don't know about their D-line. That's where Georgia beats you. Georgia beats you when they get off the bus because of how they prepare for the game, how they recruited getting there. That's it. So, yeah. All right. I have been summoned by my wife. It's not good. Hopefully it is good. Hopefully there's some bound chicka wow wow. There won't be. All right. We'll see y'all tonight. Y'all have a good one. Peace.